Hi, and welcome back to Reflect Forward. I'm your host, Carrie Siggins, and this week we're talking about what to do when you are receiving information that you don't really want to hear, feedback that is uncomfortable, absorbing a tough issue. So recently I was giving a talk about how to have candid conversations, courageous conversations in situations where the stakes are high. And we were talking about how uncomfortable it is to go and negotiate your raise with your CEO, or in my case, my board of directors, and how to deliver tough feedback in a way that people can hear, and how do you get over your anxiety. And after I was done speaking, a woman said, "Hey, I'm actually in a different situation, one that is a crucial conversation. But what do I do when my employees come to me and ask me for a raise and it triggers me?" And she shared a story how she had spent most of her career really pushing to get higher compensation and having these crucial conversations with her leaders. Now she's in a leadership position and she's having people come and talk and ask her for raises. And it's making her feel really uncomfortable because she has to balance the needs for the business and the direction that the company's going and the performance of these people. And also knowing that we're in the era of great resignation and we don't want people to leave. So she was really struggling with this. And I thought that was an interesting uh, take on the whole idea of crucial conversations, of candid conversations, courageous conversations, is what happens when someone's giving you hard information? How do you respond to make it feel as safe as possible so that you react in a way that builds the team, that creates that psychological safety, and encourages dialogue and builds the relationship instead of failing at it and flubbing it and making the person go like, "Oh God, I wish I never would have told her," which I can promise you I have done many times. But I've also worked really hard on trying to figure out how to make it safe for people to deliver tough news, ask me for things that they want, or give me feedback. So today I'd like to share 3 tips that you can put into practice in the moment when you're in that stage of feeling, "Oh, I'm triggered by this," whether it's getting defensive for feedback, or you don't really want to talk about a raise or compensation or about an issue, so that you don't flub it. So the first thing I suggest you do is always say thank you. Just remember how hard it is for the person on the other side to be bringing this up. Recall a time when you had to advocate for yourself or deliver tough feedback, and the anxiety that you felt and the preparation that you took to make sure that you said what you wanted to say in a way that landed well. It's always hard. And the best thing that you can do is say, "Thank you. I know that this took courage to tell me. I know this wasn't easy. And I really appreciate that you're bringing this up with me. Thank you so much." I just had this recently happen to me. I hired a consultant to come in and build a leadership competency model for our executive team. And when he was done doing his assessments and interviews and building the model, he went through it with me. And there was an area that I didn't assess as high as I expected to, against these competencies. And it really stung. And as I processed it, I knew that there was truth to it. In fact, the truth of it was staring like front and center in my face, but it still stung. And the first thing that I said was, "Thank you. Thank you for sharing this with me. This is really interesting information and I appreciate it. I know it probably wasn't easy for you to tell me this, so I appreciate it." And that diffuses the situation and it gives you space to process what you want to say next so that you don't blow it. The second tip is, don't feel pressured to respond in that moment. Don't feel like you have to give an answer. So, for example, one of your employees comes in and wants to negotiate salary with you, and they have brought in data and benchmarking and a list of all the things that they have done to earn this promotion or this raise. And you are struggling with, okay, I'm put on the spot right now and I really don't have it in my budget to give a raise. And do I agree with all of these things? And how do I make this fair for the rest of my team? What happens if everybody else comes in and asks me for a raise? And oh, I remember when I did this and I didn't get that raise and it sucked. And all those things are traveling through our minds. And often we want to start filling up the space with words. We want to get rid of the silence, right? We want to assert ourselves, and that can be a mistake. The best thing you can do in that situation is just pause and say, I really appreciate all of this information and I need a little bit of time to process. Whether that's dealing in this situation with a raise, somebody asking for a raise, or whether it's when someone's giving you tough feedback, or you just got a bomb dropped on you about an issue going on with the company, you do not have to respond in the moment. And oftentimes when you do, you say something that you don't want to say. You set somebody on a direction that may not be correct because you haven't thought through it. A lot of times when we react in that moment, we regret it. So don't feel the pressure to have an answer, to make a decision, to settle things right then and there. It's okay to say, I need a little bit of time to process this. Let me get back to you. Now you always need to make sure that you follow up. That's what part of leadership is stepping into the discomfort of these conversations, but you don't have to do it in the moment. This woman who I was talking to after my speech said, I just find myself in these uncomfortable situations. And then I just start talking in circles and going on. And on. And I know I sound stupid. What do I do? And I said, stop. It's okay to be spinning. And then all of a sudden just say, you know what? I'm going to say something I don't want to say because I'm not prepared and I haven't had a chance to think about this. I'm just going to stop right now and let's meet tomorrow morning after I've had some time to think about what you've just said. It doesn't mean because you've gone down that path that you have to keep going down it. So pause. Do not feel like you have to respond in a high pressure situation. And then finally, remember humanity first. People are people, and people are messy, and they are going to screw things up, and they're going to deliver news in a way that may be really tough to hear. And we can certainly critique them on their delivery, but that doesn't matter. We have to remember that we're all humans first. I just had this actually happen to me this week where I had an employee call me in a really tough situation, and he needed a little bit of support and some help. And he was really worried about what this meant for his career path, for his compensation, for his life. And I told him, no matter what, humanity, you come first as a human being. I care about you as a human first. And yes, you just told me things that I don't want to hear. And that's okay because we need to take care of you first. And that's what really matters as leaders. It's not us. It's not our egos. It's not our triggers. It's not our issues that come out. We have to manage that for our people. And if you remember to put humanity first and help people through tough situations, help them through delivering tough feedback, help them through advocating for themselves because we're all humans and we need to remember that. And we need to be kind and compassionate and have empathy for each other. It makes the situation so much easier. So, like when I got this information this week, yes, it was not something I wanted to hear. Yes, it's going to be tough on us as a company. But my number one priority is to help my employees advocate for themselves and take care of themselves. And as soon as I put that front and center, all the rest of it went out. All the rest of it became unimportant because I care about you as a human being. I care about you as a friend. I care about you as a person. And I want you to be happy and healthy. So, yes, 100%, I'm supporting you in this. And it diffused all the uncomfortableness out of the situation. So, those are my 3 tips. Say thank you. Don't feel like you have to respond in a high pressure moment, and always be empathetic. Always remember that we are humans first. And if you do those things in the moment, remember these things in the moment, you will handle yourself better. You will find a way to be cool, calm, and collected in the moment, even if you are triggered because of what the person is telling you. All right, so those are my tips for this week. I hope they were helpful. Now comes my question of the week. So, my question of the week says, I gave a peer really tough feedback. And as I was delivering it to her, I could tell she was really unhappy. What should I do? This is such a good question, right? We all have delivered tough feedback and have felt like, oh, that went horribly. So here's my advice. First, when you say, I could tell she was unhappy, you don't actually know that she was unhappy. You don't know how that person is feeling. Humans make all kinds of assumptions thinking that we know exactly what's going on in the person's head. And 99 times out of 100, we're wrong. So just because there was an expression that crossed someone's face, you shouldn't project, oh, that person is this unhappy, angry, upset, mad at me, whatever that is, you're projecting your interpretation of a facial expression. And you shouldn't do that because then you tell yourself a story and you might go down a really negative path. So, my first piece of advice is always notice objectively what's going on. A look went across her face. I'm not sure what that is. I'm going to ask. Instead of assuming, you can say, you just had a look that passed your face, and I'm trying to interpret that. Are you upset? Are you unhappy with my comment? How can I help in this situation? Don't assume, don't project your idea of what their feelings are onto them. It does not feel good for anybody, and 99 times out of 100, you're going to be wrong. Second, don't ever dilute the message just because you see that happen. Oftentimes, when we are in a crucial conversation and it starts to go south, we want to backpedal or sugarcoat, soften things because we're like, oh, it's my message, it's my message. Don't assume that it's your content. Let the other person go through the natural reactions that they need to go through. If you're delivering tough feedback, no matter who it is on the planet, it stings, and everybody is allowed to have a reaction. Some people have amazing poker faces, and you'll never know. You can't read what they're thinking, but oftentimes it hurts, it stings, and it's okay for a person to feel that way. And you need to give them space to feel whatever they're feeling without making assumptions about what they're feeling. Next, follow up. If you think that there is something that's festering, make sure that it's not. But you also need to make sure that you're not making something into a bigger deal than it is. And the only way you're going to know that it's festering or that I'm making it a bigger deal than what it is because I'm making assumptions is to talk to that person. So follow up a couple hours later or the next day, pick up the phone, go talk to that person, go for a walk and say, hey, I really just want to understand how you're feeling about my feedback. A lot of times people might get defensive in the moment or have that reaction in the moment and then go home and process it and like, hey, that was really useful and I'm really happy for it. And it can lead to an amazing conversation. But if you don't follow up, whether in the moment or afterwards, you might be making assumptions and not really knowing and turning something into an issue when it's not, or letting something fester when you can go fix it. So have the courage to have the follow up conversation. So that's my advice on how to handle that. Again, don't project your assumptions of emotions on people. Two, don't assume that it's your content. It's okay to give tough feedback. You always want to use kind language. In fact, this is another tip. Always turn negative language into positive language. So you can say something like, I'm really disappointed in you. That is a huge trigger for people. Huge trigger for people. Nobody wants to disappoint other people. Or you can say, hey, when this happened, I was taken by surprise. What's going on? Or, hey, when you did this, I was wondering, what your intention was. Not, I was really disappointed when you did this. You can get to the same outcome without projecting disappointment, anger, upset on somebody. All of those things will trigger defensiveness. And if you value the relationship, that's really important. Okay, so back to my 3 tips. So, first, don't project your assumption of their feelings on them. That's not helpful. 2, don't assume it's your content. Keep going, but use positive language instead of negative language. And 3, follow up. Always make sure that you follow up and check in with that person. It can do wonders for your relationship, and you can have further clarifying questions and really dig into what the feedback was about, because most people in the moment just want to get out of it. Following up is really critical. All right, that's this week's episode of Advice from a CEO. I hope those were some useful tips for you. I hope you have a fantastic week, and I look forward to hosting you next week where I have an amazing guest who you're going to love. You don't want to miss that episode. In the meantime, please feel free to write a review, rate, subscribe, share, like this podcast. Go to my YouTube page. You can find it under Reflect Forward, Carrie Siggins, and subscribe. I'm putting all these advice from CEOs on there in full video length for your viewing pleasure. Thank you so much. Have a great week. See you next week.